Good morning. Welcome to Little Moments Count 8th Annual Conference. Well, it's really great to see all of you today, and I also like to say a really special welcome to all of our guests joining online. I'm Jamesetta Ross Diggs. I am a proud member of the Parent and Provider Advisory Group, and it's my pleasure to kick off this meeting. I know some people have already started chatting online, but if you're wondering, just a few housekeeping items for our virtual audience. You might notice that you're already using the chat option, so that's been added this year. And if you want to interact, which you're already doing, you can do so using the feature that's already there. If you prefer not to participate and wish to view the screen without this option, then you can click on the full screen that's indicated, and your screen will extend to look like this. Then just hit the skip button and return to the side-by-side view. Also at the end, for our virtual audience, you will be reminded to take the post-event survey just to tell us how we did today. And speaking of virtual, I have my family who is joining online. And I am so grateful for all their support and just like to shout out and say, thanks, guys. I appreciate you always. Today, we celebrate some of the people who have championed the cause of early childhood in our communities. We also continue to emphasize how crucial the first 3 years of a child's life is and how these years are impacted by the interactions young children have with their primary caregivers and their parents. It's in moments like these when I can't help but reflect on my own childhood, growing up in Liberia, a vibrant but a small country in Western Africa. I still remember how my parents fought to keep my siblings and I alive during the 14-year civil crisis that began with me as a child and ended with me as an adult. For my parents, a lot of parenting was influenced by fear. And I wish I could say that I put away those fears when I faced into parenting, but I did not. As I transitioned into parenting, especially in a different culture as an immigrant, I faced my own fears every day. Fears from my own childhood that now impacts my ability to parent effectively. Fears of meeting my children's needs in a complex system that is so difficult to navigate and access relevant resources. I also face the fears of raising Black children in a system that has been affected by systemic racism and having to have hard conversations with my children about race every time. But in these lived fears also come the ability for me to thrive, to heal, and to parent authentically. I find that the intentionality to create a balance for our children to grow healthy and happy is even more empowering. And that means turning moments of stress and fear into moments of connection and growth. Like in some challenging times when study times had to become story times, and when meal prep times had to become music and movement times. These simple exchanges and little moments make a big difference for our children. However, this determination was not born in isolation. I can still look around and see the community of people who are surrounding me every day, encouraging me and giving me hope that parenting in a different culture is possible. Some people just offering to watch my children when I ran errands. And parents here, you know what it means to get those few hours off, right? Yes. But this continual system of support empowers me and it nurtures the resilience that I need to be the parent that I have to be. To me, I believe this is community. And not only does it impact my life and my children's, but it also inspires the work that I do every day to support parents who are like me, living with their own constant fears, and dealing with the challenges of parenting and life. I see parents who are already doing the work. They're singing, they're playing, they're interacting with their children, but all they need is just a boost, someone to listen, and just meet them where they're at. I also see parents who don't know where to start. They're overwhelmed by their own challenges and need a support or need someone just to encourage them to keep trying. See, I'm driven by the realization that all parents have unique strengths. And with the right tools and relevant support, they can develop the tenacity to build healthy and thriving lives for themselves. They can nurture healthy brains with rich early experiences for their children within their own diverse cultures and communities. And what these systems can do is they can support and become a framework for communities to lay strong early foundations and equip parents like me and other parents to invest in the most critical stages of their child's life. And that is the first 1,000 days. This is also the first 240,000 hours. And this moment is also the first 1,440,000 minutes of life, a period of potential possibilities for each child's future. Thank you. And large collaborations like Little Moments Count need many partners to reach parents and to make the impact that we desire. I'm pleased to welcome one of such partners. Please give a warm welcome to Dushawn Drew, Senior Vice President of the American Public Media Group and Vice President and President of the Minnesota Public Radio.
Thank you, Jamesetta. Wonderful story. Thank you for sharing it with us. So in my role, I have the joy of leading NPR in partnerships with Little Moments Count, the growing collaborative of cross-sector organizations that have shared a commitment to our youngest children and their futures. I'm so grateful both personally and on behalf of NPR to be part of this amazing collaborative focused on building awareness about the critical brain development that takes place in the first 3 years of life. In my very early years, I was a Head Start kid. So I know from personal experience just how important it is to ensure that all of our children and their parents get the support that they need to prepare them for lifelong learning. Everyone here today knows that this starts long before the first day of school. Earlier in my career, I spent many years as an education reporter. In fact, it's the reason I became a journalist. I spent that time shining a light on the importance of educating our children, which we know begins with brain development that parents and caregivers can support with simple moments of reading, talking, singing, and playing. And of course, as a proud parent of two now college age, so this is, see, there's no gray in that photo, right? You can see it's time lapse. My son Kevin's a senior at Morehouse College. My daughter Charlotte is a junior at University of Maryland College Park. They're both about to launch into the world. We've invested everything we have in them, and we got support along the way. So we know that brain development begins so early that it makes a difference. You don't get to the stage they're at now without the support of people like you and your partners across the country, frankly, trying to lean into this work. So all this makes sort of this event and this moment in time. I think about the growth of Little Moments Count over the years. It's very meaningful to me. Pooh and I were just talking about just all the balls we're juggling, and I'm going to put some balls down in the coming year. This is not among the ones I'm going to put down. This is really near and dear to my heart, and I'm deeply appreciative of the fact that you guys are here in this work with us. So one of the things I really want to talk about is the fact that we've got this new position. Over there, Kyra Miles is our new early childhood education reporter. That position, I should note, was made possible through a gift from the Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota folks. Doesn't happen without support. So Kyra joined us this summer. She's new. She's been working really hard to make sure Minnesotans know more about these issues. She's dove in, both feet fully in, trying to cover early childhood issues across the entire state. And I want to turn the mic over to Kyra for a few minutes so she can talk about her work and share some of the things that she's working on. Come on, my friend.
Hello, everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces, so that's exciting. I'm making the right connections, I see. I'm really excited to pioneer this new beat here at NPR News and really dig into early care and learning in the state. My philosophy for this beat is, one, reporting from prenatal to 5, because we know that a lot of early childhood outcomes, they start before the child is even born. And 2, reporting that captures the diversity of the state and solutions for equity in childcare and early education. I've already been able to connect with amazing kids and educators, like in this story on nature-based learning. This is my first feature with NPR, where I went out to the school and I sat down with preschoolers and really captured their excitement about learning outside. I'm also looking forward to holding our lawmakers accountable. This year was a great time to start this beat because the state has been trying to do a lot to support families and childcare providers through different initiatives. But I will be watching to see if those proposals help the people in the way that they intend to. And I'll do that by speaking to the people this legislation directly impacts, the childcare providers, the parents, and the kids, if they can talk at that point. I'm interested in stories that cover the gamut of early childhood, like stories about diverse communities, health outcomes, and academic and mental health struggles and achievements in early education classrooms. So I'm looking forward to learning more about Minnesota and being a source for information on early childhood. So please feel free to share story ideas and information tips with me. Thank you, and I will now pass it back to Deshawn.
Good hire, right? So as a news organization and a public service, NPR is about helping people in our communities come together, make sure they're informed and inspired to be active members of their communities. That's the role for public media, and it's the role NPR is proud to play as a partner with Little Moments Count. We do this by amplifying your voices in your work. This year, we've done this via our expanded community radio partnerships. So we're so grateful for the partners we've been able to kind of connect with over the last few years for on-air conversations with Little Moments Count. And we've got some guests here. I don't know if everyone's here, but I'm going to read whether you're here or not. I just want to acknowledge some folks who've leaned into this work with us with Little Moments Count Radio Partnership. So Robert Pilot from Native Roots Radio, Andrea Pierre from KRSM, Katie DeSeal from WFNU, Frogtown Radio, and Freddie Bell and Walter Q. Banks from KMOJ. Thank you all for partnering with us on this. I'm also excited to announce that La Raza has signed on as our most recent partner. And Maya Santa Maria from La Raza, who's here today, she'll be helping us by leading Little Moments Count reach parents and caregivers with a new series of conversations in Spanish starting in December on 95.7 FM. So thank you, Maya. We're also grateful to the many Little Moments Count community partners who've gone on the air with these community radio partners to share your expertise and your stories with your communities. Reaching parents and caregivers through trusted messengers is a key strategy for Little Moments Count, and you help make this happen. And I want to underscore this point. We have a lot of folks who come to 91.1 to get the news and information, and we're grateful for it. We also know that there are many, many people who don't tune into us to get what they need. So these partnerships are really essential to our reaching the folks who most need this information, and that's really, for us, the goal, right? It isn't about NPR, it's about serving community in ways that make sense. So having folks like Maya step up and say, I'm in, I want my community to have access to this information is critical to this entire movement. In addition to hearing these community radio conversations on the air, these segments are available anytime on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and on the Little Moments Count website as Little Moments Count Radio Podcast. So we're really trying to make it available in all the places people find their news and information. And so you can help us by letting folks in your world know that this content's available. So So speaking of amplifying voices, we continue to amplify the voice and vision of our friend Diane Halsey through the Early Risers podcast. So last season, Diane talked with parents from across the state of Minnesota, and she's already hard at work on season 5. Season 5. And that will launch in January. I'll just take just a quick aside. Diane proposed this podcast in the wake of George Floyd's murder, saying, and I think you think about where we were as a community, as a state, as a country back then, struggling to find the words, struggling to find the courage to talk about these issues with adults, much less with children. And she stepped up and was like, I think we need to lead here. I think there's an opportunity to give people the tools and the courage, kind of the fuel, to lean into this work. And now we're looking into season 5. So just so grateful, so appreciative of her heart and her smarts. So thank you, Diane, for all the work that you're doing to help parents and caregivers learn how to talk to their children, how to talk to young people in their lives about race and difference. It takes all of us to build a brighter future for Minnesota's littlest learners, and NPR is grateful to be in partnership with all of you to make this happen. Now, I'm pleased to introduce Allison Corrado, who's co-chair of the Start Early Funders Coalition's Public Policy Committee, and she's also a senior program officer with Blue Cross and Blue Shield Minnesota Foundation. She's going to present the Parent and Provider Champion Awards and the Nancy Latimer Award.
I'm keeping my water close by in case I cough. Good morning, everyone. As Deshawn said, my name's Allison Corrado, and I co-chair the Start Early Funders Coalition's Public Policy Committee. We already agreed that was a long title. And we at Start Early are so pleased to join Little Moments Count this for the second time to celebrate the 17th annual Nancy Latimer Awards. Celebrating these awards at the Little Moments Count Conference is such a fun way for us to lift up and celebrate the people that are doing incredible work, making an impact with children and their families every single day. And we hope that you'll join the conversation online and use the hashtags Little Moments Count and Latimer23 on social media throughout the morning. The Start Early Funders Coalition is a collaboration of 18 members of Minnesota's philanthropic community. We provide critical leadership and funding for research, program development, public policy, and grant making to improve early childhood efforts and outcomes across the state of Minnesota. The Nancy Latimer Award is given each year in honor of the late Nancy Latimer. Nancy was an early childhood champion, and every year we get to celebrate her legacy with the Latimer family. And I'm not sure if any of the Latimer family are here, but if you are, would you give us a wave so we can celebrate with you? Thank you for being here. The Nancy Latimer Award recognizes the work of advocates in our community who carry out her legacy through their work with and on behalf of children and families across the state. And at Start Early, we really value the perspective and the priorities of parents and providers. And we think it's so important to amplify their voices to advance early childhood outcomes. So with this in mind, in addition to the Nancy Latimer Award, every year we have the honor of recognizing the advocacy of parents and our early childhood providers and educators with our Parent and Provider Champion Awards. And I'm excited to announce the winner of the 2023 Parent and Provider Champion Award, Jocelyn Thomas. Jocelyn Thomas. Let's snap it. Jocelyn Thomas is an incredible mom, an entrepreneur, and she calls herself a mompreneur. She started an early childhood program to ensure her children had access to high-quality education. Being their first teacher fueled her to become an early childhood provider, an author, a book that my child loves, and an advocate. And starting at a high school childcare program, she obtained her CDA and then her director's credential and went on to open a program called Expanding Minds, where she promotes literature, culture, and health. She partners with the Minnesota Reading Corps, Think Small, Parent Aware, the Greater Twin Cities United Way, and she's a member of the Start Early Parent and Provider Advisory Group. She authored a children's book called Watch Me Grow, and implements a farming curriculum that includes growing from seed and harvesting together. And I just have to say and acknowledge, Jocelyn received 17 individual nominations for this award, which speaks, it's a record, which speaks to just how much she is loved in the community. So congratulations, Jocelyn. And to show appreciation for her fellow advisory group members, today's speakers and panelists, Jocelyn has created a Watch Me Grow gift box to gift to those individuals. So thank you again, and congratulations, Jocelyn. Next up, I am pleased to announce our Provider Champion Award, Vanessa Good Thunder. You can sing. Vanessa Good Thunder is from Chanshayapi, where they paint the trees red, also known as the Lower Sioux Indian community. Her leadership impacts early childhood Dakota language revitalization and the lives of Native children and their families. Since her youth, Vanessa has promoted Dakota ways of life, and as an advocate, a language instructor, an influential advisor in state government. At 23, she was the youngest Head Start director in the United States and started, yeah, that's right. And she started the first, Minnesota's first Dakota Immersion Head Start program. She has successfully connected the community to high-quality early childhood care and education, preserving language and culture in a program where 100% of the children are ready for kindergarten. Vanessa knows that languages can be used to heal from historical trauma and has dedicated her life to learning and teaching the Dakota and Dene languages. Join me in congratulating Vanessa. I want to take a moment to recognize all of the previous Nancy Latimer Award recipients, several of whom I believe are in the room today. If you're here, would you please stand so that we can acknowledge you? And many of our past award recipients are joining us online as well. So thank you for being here and for the work that you continue to do every day. And now I am very happy to announce the 2023 Nancy Latimer Award recipient, Denise Mayotte. Denise Mayotte's 40-year career spans community organizing, local radio, nonprofit management, and philanthropy. As the recently retired former executive director of the Sheltering Arms Foundation, for the past 20 years, Denise dedicated funds to community-based early childhood programming. She worked tirelessly to move the early childhood field forward by eliminating educational disparities through programming and through coalition building. She was an active leader in the School Readiness Funders Coalition and the Early Childhood Funders Network, and she helped build and lead the Mini Minds Coalition and built and led the Start Early Funders Coalition, chairing the public policy with me for many years. Her leadership at the Capitol has resulted in significant wins over the years, from increased funding for early learning scholarships, the development of parent-aware early childhood workforce supports, increased resources for early childhood mental health, and resources for our family, friend, and neighbor child care providers. And this award is especially important and special for me to give to Denise, as Nancy Latimer was a really critical mentor of Denise's, helping shape her career centered on compassion and dignity and respect. And it is especially special for me to give to Denise as a huge mentor of mine. So congratulations, Denise. You say a few words.
Okay, not to cry. Thank you, Allison. It means so much to get this award from you and from the Start Early funders. Start Early is such an incredibly important advocacy group that's been critical to improving the lives of children throughout our state. I want to add my congratulations to Jocelyn and Vanessa. Your work as parents, advocates, child care providers are at the core of our early childhood movement. I'm deeply honored to be among the recipients of the Nancy Latimer Award, so many of whom are in this room or online, as we have heard, and all of you have helped propel this work forward. And personally, as Allison said, it means so much to receive this award because it's named after Nancy Latimer and is all about Nancy Latimer, who was a friend and mentor of mine. Nancy took the time to mentor me as I transitioned from my work with her at the McKnight Foundation to my new role at Sheltering Arms some 20 years ago, a long time ago. I remember the afternoon that we sat in her office at McKnight when she helped lay out a direction for me to move forward. She spelled out the importance of advocacy to make real systems change and the critical role that a broad funder coalition could play. I want to emphasize what a visionary idea this was at the time, as funders hadn't really recognized a role for themselves in advocacy. She got it going. And I followed her wise advice and devoted myself and the Sheltering Arms Foundation first to the Early Childhood Funders Coalition that Nancy helped to start, and then devoting my time to the Start Early Funders Coalition that followed. Nancy Latimer had other huge impacts to advance our work as she helped to create the Minnesota Initiative foundations that have been so central to the statewide success of our early childhood movement, and with whom we've all been so honored to partner. And imagine how thrilled Nancy would have been with last year's astounding success at the legislature for young children. And I really want to thank our legislative champions who are in the room for helping with that. I'm looking at you, Representative Pinto, of course. Yes, so thank you for this award, and thanks to all of you who are in the room for your work, the parents, the providers, the advocates, funders, legislators, and others who've accelerated the early childhood movement over the last decades. I've been so honored to be a part of it, and I look forward to continuing to advocate for equity in all things that help make children and their families successful. Thanks again for this incredibly meaningful award. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Denise. I want to extend a huge congratulations to all of our award recipients for this year's Nancy Latimer Award ceremony. Let's give them all another round of applause. I'm excited now to turn things over to Angela Watts, the Director of Health Equity Strategic Initiatives at Hennepin Healthcare, to introduce our keynote speaker.
Good morning. I am really thrilled and excited to have the opportunity to introduce you to our keynote speaker. I think his bio is impressive and important, and I want you to know about him the way I know about him. So first of all, we've had many national and local speakers for this Little Moments Count conference. What's exciting to me is that today we have someone who has a great national reputation, but also is a statewide leader, in my opinion. Brandon's background is impressive. To tell you a little bit about Brandon, he currently serves as the executive director of the Minnesota Association of Children's Mental Health. He's a 2013 Bush Fellow. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology and a Master's of Psychology from Metropolitan State. And he also has a Master of Psychotherapy from the Adler Graduate School and has extensive background as a clinician working with children and families. But that's not the most exciting part. The most exciting part to me is his real life experience. Brandon is impressive. He's a civic citizen. He serves and volunteers on numerous state and county local boards. He's a community advocate. He's a writer. He's a professor. And he and his wife, Monica, are the proud parents of 3 daughters, one which is under age 3. So that fact alone makes him immensely qualified to be in this space with us today. But what I want to say is that while all of his credentials and his lived experience are really important, I do want to caution you not to see him as a role model, because he's not. He is far more than that. He is a real model. He is someone who can put together academic, real-life experience to be able to share with us, how do you move forward in these distressing times? I think he won't mind sharing with you that his youngest daughter was born during the time of COVID. And I've watched Brandon not only lead his organization, support others in the community, support parents through his work, but also raise his own children and families. So I would like for you to join me in welcoming Brandon Jones to the podium and get really excited about sharing his experience. Thank you so much.
All right, good morning, everybody. I can just sit down after that. I don't know if we need to really hear me speak. Sound like the greatest thing ever. Oh, man. Well, I'm gonna share a few things with you. I'm gonna give you a little bit of my own journey, my own life story, talk a little bit about my parenting experience, talk a little bit why this work is important to me as well as we move throughout today. My keynote is entitled Nurturing Resilience, Understanding Trauma from Prenatal to the Age of 3 and Embracing Post-Traumatic Growth. Now, the term post-traumatic growth may be new to some of you. I've been really focused on this over the last 3 to 4 years, is really talking about post-traumatic growth. And the reason for that is a call from the community, because most people know me for doing work around trauma, intergenerational trauma, historical trauma, racial trauma. And here in Minnesota, we've been very forward around ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And a lot of people, after the trainings that I've done or the conversations that I've had, they go, what's next? Now that we know this, what are we supposed to do? And me and a few of my colleagues, we've thought about that. What are we supposed to talk about? Is it just epigenetics? Is it adverse community experiences? Or is it something bigger and more than that? And what we kind of landed on was focusing on 2 things, something called cultural intelligence, which I'm not going to talk too much about today, and another thing called post-traumatic growth, which is making sure that once these things do happen and show up in people's lives, it's not the narrative, it's not the title, it's not the end. It's just a part of the journey. And how do we help people continue to, move forward and to grow and to develop, even knowing these negative things have happened? And in these conversations, a lot of people say, well, Brandon, your story is a post-traumatic growth story in itself. Born and raised in St. Paul. I'm a St. Paul kid at heart. I was born into trauma and drama. I start with this picture instead of a baby picture of myself, because this is when the trauma really started in my dynamic. This is me. I'm the kid here with the blue shirt on who's kind of standing like I have a military background or something, and my brother that's right under me. And in this photo, I'm probably about 6 years old. That's my little brother. He's like 2. He's a big kid. He's 6'6" now. He was always a big kid. He caught up to me when he was in 6th grade and I was in the 9th grade. We were wearing the same size shoe. So he's like 2 years old here. I was a little over 5 at this point. And that's when things started to change and I started to notice the change. I grew up in a domestic violence home. And one time is more than enough. You see one domestic violence situation that can, severely shift any child's perspective. And I always knew that something was not right about what was going on at home. Before that, I always felt love. I had everything I needed. I was the only child. I was the first grandchild. I was the first child of my generation. So everybody had Brandon. I was all around the Twin Cities and Minneapolis with my cousins and things. It was love. And then my mom met my brother's dad, and things shifted. And I noticed that shift right away. And one of the things I learned at this point in understanding trauma was I got adultified very early. I learned how to cook on a gas stove. And when I say cook, I'm not saying just put things in a microwave. I was making spaghetti, thawing out ground beef, making hamburger helper. Like I had responsibility very, very early because I had to help. Because when my stepfather wasn't around, I had to become, quote unquote, the man of the house. I was 6. That's trauma. Okay, that's trauma. I wasn't ready for that. I wanted to play with my Ninja Turtles. I think I had just got a Sega Genesis. I just wanted to have some fun. But I had some fun, but I also had some adult responsibilities at the same time. So understanding trauma and early warning signs doesn't always look like the kid who's quiet or the kid who's scared. Sometimes it's the kid who just seems to be doing fine, but is struggling because he doesn't have a childhood. He doesn't have a childhood. And I say that because one of my goals is to always give children a childhood. So many of our children are growing up with responsibilities that are way beyond them, even at very young ages. So when I talk about 0 to 3, I talk about me realizing I had to take care of my little brothers from 0 to 3. From 0 to 3. Abuse and neglect. Now, my household didn't have so much abuse, more neglect. And when the neglect was around us, the development and nurturing of children. We didn't have story time in my house. We didn't eat dinner at a table. When the food was done, everybody got their bowl or their plate and went their way. Some of us sat in front of a television. Some of us sat at the table. Some of us sat on the couch, but we never had family dinner. And I always thought that was weird. I'm like, I know families eat dinner together. I see it on TV all the time. Why don't we? What is going on here? And it wasn't really, neglect that was direct. It wasn't like my parents or my mom and my stepfather were intentionally trying not to be there. They were just busy with other things, right? Taking care. Some people had to work, several jobs. Sometimes we had other kids in our house that folks were taking care of as well. There were just other focuses and not necessarily always the kids. So infants and toddlers experience trauma through physical, emotional, sexual abuse, as well as neglect. Lack of consistent caregiving, nurturing, responsiveness can affect their sense of security. That was me, sense of security. And being adultified, I put myself in that space to be the securer of my younger siblings. That's trauma. Because who's trying to secure Brandon? I had to grow up really fast. I had to be the tough kid in the neighborhood at 6, 7 years old to make sure that they were able to develop and grow. Parental substance abuse. Now, parents don't, struggle with substance abuse just because they're addicts or they can't get their lives together. Sometimes they're stressed out. And they utilize substances to move through some of the pain and things they're going through. Most of the time, a lot of the work that I've done as a clinician, I've learned that many of my clients, their trauma was started before they were even born. Their narrative started before they were born. My name is Brandon. My youngest brother, his name is Michael Sr. I did not know we had different dads till I was 12 years old. So when my stepdad came into the picture, remember, I was under the age of 3. I didn't realize who was this guy. He was just dad to me until my grandma unleashed the family secret. Now, grandmas always do those things, don't they? Especially around this time. I'm gonna bring my grandma up again because she comes back into the story here for another funny part. But I remember I was turning 12 years old, and this will get to the substance piece in a minute. And I was at my grandmother's house over in the Rondo neighborhood, and my grandma said, "Sit down, Brandon, I need to tell you something." I was terrified. I don't know if y'all understand African-American grandmas, black grandmas, when they tell you to sit down, I need to tell you something. I was like, uh-oh, what did I do now? But she said, "No, listen, Brandon, there's something that's very important for you to understand." And verbatim, she said, "Michael is not your dad." And I remember having part relief and part fear when she said those words. Because I didn't like my stepdad. He treated me very different. And I never understood why until that moment. And then I was like, now that I know this, what's going to happen? Then the next thing that my grandmother said was, "And you're going to meet your father on your birthday." I'm like, what is going on today? I rather had just took the butt whooping at that point. I was like, my emotions were all over the place. And she says, your dad lives over North Minneapolis and you're gonna go see him on your birthday. Now, I'm born on the 4th of July. So on my birthday, it's always a party. It's always something going on. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this thing. And she probably told me that about a month in advance, and she set it up. She took me to go see my father. And so I go over to North Minneapolis, and I'll be honest with you all, I'm a St. Paul kid. I was terrified. I thought I was not gonna come back home. Because I had all the same internalized thoughts about North Minneapolis as everybody else did. I'm like, what is my grandma trying to do to me yet again? But I got over there and everything was fine. People were nice. They were like, people knew me. I didn't know who these folks were. Brandon, you're here. Oh, you look just like your dad. I kept hearing it, but I didn't see him. Where is he? I'm meeting all these cousins. I found out I have stepsisters. I grew up with all boys, as you can see from the photo. And then, this is before cell phones. So my grandma said, I'm going to pick you up when the street lights come on. And I remember the street lights are starting to come on. I still haven't met my dad yet. I'm like, my grandma's going to be here any second. And right when I was thinking that, here comes my dad through the door, and then my grandma was right behind him. And I was like, oh, and he was like, I'm your dad. It's good to see you. But he was drunk. And I remember right at that moment, I was just turning 12 years old. I don't know about you all know about 12-year-old boys, but we start to grow hair in places and start to think of ourselves a little different. I'm like, I don't need this guy anymore because he didn't show up for me at that moment. And in my head, I developed what I would call a stigma around African-American men. They're abusers and alcoholics. Don't trust them. That's hard when you're developing because you need that type of role model. You talked about me being a role model. You need those types of folks in your life to help you keep moving forward. So I understood very clearly as a young person how substances show up in the lives of parents. And I knew he can't be a dad to me if he's going to show up in these conditions, especially the first time he meets me. And I remember I said, my focus was on my brothers again. I said I had to make sure that they never see me intoxicated, never to drink alcohol, never do any of these things because they need something better for that. I was putting myself back in that adult role yet again. Then family violence. I knew what domestic violence was. I witnessed domestic violence many times. Many of my childhood memories, believe it or not, are traumatic. But I've gone through tons of therapy. I've gone through a lot of self-work, and this is where the post-traumatic growth comes in. I can talk about those things without breaking down or feeling, anxiety or things of that nature, because there's a part of that, being able to tell that story and those narratives that is healing, because you've come through those things, and I've seen a lot of it. This photo here is the photo that highlights the violence. This is a family photo, and oftentimes when I use this, I always say, what's missing in this family photo? A father. And my stepdad was around. He was in and out sometimes, and it probably felt more like a single mother household, but he was around. But when we had family photos, it was really weird. A few years ago, I would go help my mom. I was helping my mom clean the home, and we were looking at photos, and I remember we were going through all these family photos, and I kept saying, where's our dad at? Where's our dad at? And it was like, wow, he was never in these photos. It never dawned on me until then, is that when it came to these happy moments, he was always not around. And that was because of the domestic violence. And this is a photo that was taken at Sears right down the street here, by the way. We used to do all our family photos at Sears. So building resiliency. So remember, developing, growing up, thinking, can't depend on men. Fathers are important. I understood that. I knew that. I knew I wanted to become a father. And I knew that I would have to do things differently than my stepdad did and my biological father. So building resiliency. Nurturing strength and ability within the first 6 years of life. Resiliency is not an innate trait, but a skill that comes by nurturing and developing over time. I didn't realize it, but growing up, I was developing father skills with my siblings because I was taking care of them. So when my brother right below me was turning 3, I was already parenting him. Then when my youngest brother turned 3, I was already parenting him. I was the one reading the books to my little brothers, and I was the one who was feeding them because my mom had to work multiple jobs, or she was taking care of other responsibilities to make sure that we at least had a roof over our head. And I was the one stepping up. So children are nurtured, curious, and they're adaptable, and make early years an opportune time for fostering resilience. Creating a safe, supportive environment encourages positive relationships, provides structure and habits for problem solving and emotional regulation and creativity. And I knew this. I knew this very early. I think my mom knew this too, so she would support me as well. We almost functioned like co-parents, even though I was the child. But it's important to understand that when we talk about the development of children and people say things like it takes a village, sometimes that village is within the same family dynamic. And that's important. And I think we miss that sometimes. And we overlook who caregivers really are. Sometimes they are siblings. And that's one of the points I wanted to make today is don't overlook the assistance that's already there. Sometimes they're grandmothers, they're cousins, they may be even family friends, but there are folks who step up and step in and they play that parenting role in many communities. Embracing the post-traumatic growth. So life goes on. I deal with my trauma. I go to therapy. I go to college. You've seen all my great bio and things of that nature. Then I become a father. And guess what? All that trauma that I dealt with in therapy and stuff came right back. I'm not lying. I remember when my first daughter was born, I was sitting there with her. It was probably about a weekend. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I need to put her down. I don't know what to do. And my wife said, bro, literally she said, bro. For some of you who know Monica, you know. She was like, bro, you need to go back to therapy. I was like, okay, you're right. Yes, I do. And the reason for that was when I went through therapy the first time, I was going to be a therapist. I said, if I'm going to sit across anyone on the couch and they're going to tell me their deepest, darkest secrets, I need to go sit and do my own as well. And that's what I did. And I was preparing myself to help others. But I wasn't doing it from a place of being a father. I didn't do it just yet. So when I became a father, all that stuff, I was fathering without a foundation. All that stuff came right back up. And that's when the post-traumatic growth piece came in for me. So what is post-traumatic growth? Well, it's this concept that can lead to improved relationships, more compassion and openness, appreciation for life, spiritual growth, personal strengths, and a renewed sense of possibilities within the world. And my journey continued at that point. That I had to start doing things to move beyond the trauma that I experienced, not forgetting it, but working through it so that I can show up for these young people that I'm responsible for now. These are my two daughters. The oldest one is Anella. My middle child there is Audrey. They had great births, no issues, birthing centers, everything happened. We were in and out in less than 24 hours. Amazing. And I'll talk about the third birth because it wasn't as easy. So what are the 5 domains of post-traumatic growth? Well, the first domain is personal strength. That is recognizing our abilities and possibilities. I had to do this as a father. I had to recognize what are the personal strengths that I have. I knew I had parenting skills. I read all the textbooks on marriage and family therapy and how to do detangulation of triangles and all these things, Bowen's theories. I was familiar with everything. But that actual experience was something that I was lacking because I didn't have it. And I had to just do trial and error. But I knew I had some strengths. I knew that I was dedicated to the development of my children. Healthy relationships. So finding supports and networks to help you move forward. One of the key things in my parenting journey when it comes to post-traumatic growth was building a co-parenting relationship with my wife. Now, a lot of times we think about co-parenting, we think about parents who are not together. But co-parenting extends way beyond that. Because my wife's parenting style and my parenting style are very different. We grew up in 2 different types of dynamics. So we had to learn and adjust. And not for just one child, for all 3 of them. Because when you have more kids, the parenting dynamic changes. For those of you who know, you know. So we had to learn, how do we parent with 1 versus how we parent with 2, and then how do we parent with 3? And continuing to work on that relationship has been key for my post-traumatic growth and for hers as well. The third is appreciation and purpose of life. And I'm a big purpose person. One of my quotes that I put out there is live life with purpose on purpose. I think a lot of people lose purpose when trauma shows up or when stress happens or anxiety gets too high. So understanding what is important to you and why. Many parents that I've worked with over the years, their children are so important. Even if they haven't seen their kids in years, their children are important to them. So that's one of their purposes. I always use that as a motivation to help keep folks going, keep moving forward. Number 4 is consecutive constructive choices. So, exploring new experiences, information, spaces, and people. One of the best things that I've learned as a parent is you just got to get out there and try different things. New parks, new friends, new things all the time because your kids need those experiences to grow. And so do we. We need to get out of our comfort zones. A lot of times as adults, we hear it's hard to make friends when you're older. That's true. But if you have kids, that's one of the easier ways for you to do it. But a lot of times we don't want to do that because we don't want to meet new parents, things like that. But sometimes you got to get out of that comfort zone a little bit. And then the last thing is personal development. Now, personal development looks different for different people. It's very subjective. But the key thing is finding out who you are or who you truly want to be. And what are you investing in yourself? Time? Is it finances? What are you being intentional about your growth and development? And sometimes it's about slowing down. That's been my biggest thing. You heard all the stuff that I do. There's a lot of those things that I do not do anymore. I've had to take a lot of things off my plate, and in 2024, I'm planning on taking a lot more off to be more intentional about being present with my children. Because I'm starting to hear them say things like, and I'm bringing them with me places too, for those of you who were at the IC conference, you got to see some of my kids with me. But also, they're starting to say things like, Dad, what time are you going to be home for dinner now? They never asked me that question. They ask me that now. So that means what? They're seeking. They need daddy. I have to be present. So knowing that, that's part of my personal development, is I have to not say yes to everything and say, maybe not right now, but maybe later. Effective parenting strategies. So in the early years, it is about creating a supportive and nurturing environment that promotes healthy development. Incorporating these strategies into our parenting approaches lays a foundation for a resilient, confident, and emotional intelligent child. These include models of positive behaviors, encouraging constructive habits, and building emotional intelligence. One of the biggest things that I've done as a parent is just model correct behavior. Taking the best care of myself when I can, showing up, stopping what I'm doing to answer what they want. When I was a kid, if I stopped my mom for something, it was not good. It was not good. But sometimes, one of the things that my middle child Audrey's been doing lately is story time. So she catches Dad, you gonna read me a book today? And I've probably read like 20 books in the month of November already, because she wants story time multiple times a day. It's not just bedtime story. It's just whenever I want Daddy to read me a story, we're gonna read a story. And I had to force myself, stop working, stop answering emails, go read the book, because that's important for her development and her connection. Effective parenting is about being intentional. It's about pacing. And it's also about asking for help when you need it. And a lot of parents feel guilty about asking for help, but sometimes you do need that assistance and support. Fostering healthy attachment, regulation, and social communication. This comes from the developmental repair model from Dr. Ann Garrity, one of our our local treasures that we have here. She says that social communication involves exchange of feelings and ideas and intentions between people. Because children need parents so much, they become interested in their parents, they become interested in what their parents will do and gradually appreciate what their parents might do. They are starting to think about their parents' minds. Parents are also appreciate what their babies are thinking, and in ways to help their children know their needs, feelings, and even their thoughts. So there's this level of attachment of mirroring. Things that you do, your children are watching you, and you're watching your children, and they help you grow and adjust as well. And that leads me to my third child, baby Skylar. Now, Skylar's birth story wasn't as magnificent as the first two. Skylar was not born in a birthing center. Skylar was born in a hospital during the pandemic, and it was tough. My wife, on her birthday of all days, she has her regular checkup. She calls me frantic, says, Brandon, I'm being admitted to the hospital. You need to come. I had to stop work at that moment and figure out, okay, what's happening? Then she said, they're not letting me out of here. My wife spent 3.5 weeks in the hospital with preeclampsia. Now, this is during the middle of the pandemic. My 2 daughters could not see my wife, okay? I'm losing my mind. I just started at MACMA. I'm about 3 months in. My wife's in the hospital. My 2 daughters are just about to start school. It's September. And I'm just like, what is going on? And we can't get in the hospital. So they couldn't see their mom for about 2 of those weeks. And then she was able to be released outside, and we would go see her when she can go outside. It was just a mess. And then we got an induced date of September 30th. My wife does not like hospitals. That's why we've had our children at birth center. She's a birth advocate and coach herself. There's a lot of work in this space. And we were faced with something we could not avoid. We had to do this. We had to have the C-section. We had to have our child. And then it happened. Then our child was in the NICU for 53 days, which is a lot. But then that was my moment to say, okay, what am I focusing on? What is attachment like? Going back and forth to the hospital and trying to build a bond with a child who has all these things connected to them and tubes up their nose. It was very difficult, but that was my moment where I realized this is where it starts. When those tough moments happen, being present, slowing ourselves down. Attachment becomes a regulatory system because of the interactive experience promoting necessarily adaptations on many levels. Parents and children work together to create biological and psychological regulation that is intentionally shared. And that's where it started. One of the toughest moments, one of the scariest moments. Her brain development was going, and we had to do what we had to do to maintain that much attachment as possible. So we didn't do it alone, though. It wasn't just me and my wife. We had community. We had support around us as well. And believe it or not, as a well-resourced family, people showed up for us. They brought us meals. They gave us breaks. They watched my kids so that we can be together at the NICU. There were all types of people showing up for us, people that I didn't even know that well. They just were like, Brandon, we support you. Go and be with your wife. Go and be with your baby. And I hope that everyone who goes through a situation like that can have the same type of communal support that we had as well. Leaning into services and resources, but not becoming dependent is very important. You know, every time I work with a family, I'm always trying to encourage and develop skills so that they don't have to always come back to me. I see so many people, unfortunately, who get caught in what I call a dependency loop, and then it's like they continue to need services over and over and over, and that doesn't help anybody in the dynamic. We have to try our best to make people as self-sufficient, but also understand that community has their back at the same time. Community creation for systems and being honest about where the community or the cultures are at, I think, is another important thing as well. When we are approaching things, building programs and initiatives, we have to understand the culture within the communities. If you don't take that cultural intelligence step, our programs fall short and our efforts do not work. And then we're scratching our head and looking at similar data year after year after year. And then the last thing, this is a quote of mine, in a world where everything is smart, all we have to do is be wise. Use these tools, talk to people, put things together. You know, it's okay to make the connections that we have in order to improve the outcomes for children. So this is baby Audrey now. Some of you have seen her live and in person. She is a busybody. She has the nickname of Boogie because she does not stop moving. That is no lie. She is all over the place. But this is my call to action. So the aim today is to empower parents and providers with the knowledge and tools and hope as they navigate through complexities of early childhood trauma. By understanding the importance of trauma awareness and potential for post-traumatic growth, parents can give their children the best possible start while fostering growth and resilience. Trauma does not become a label for folks, but it can for some people when they don't understand, when they don't have hope. Sometimes we have to be those folks who push the hope. We have to take care of ourselves and model certain behaviors as well. But the biggest thing is we have to be present and intentional. And when we do that, children have a chance. And our babies can't wait. They need us now and they need us today. And we have to be able to do as much as we can to make sure they have every opportunity to develop in a healthy society. And with that, I'm going to pause. If there's any questions or people want to connect with me, feel free to use the QR code to connect with me via LinkedIn, or you can send me an email to my personal email instead of my Macman one, because if you send it there, I might not get to you in a while. That's a busy email. So one thing we want to do is we're going to have a panel conversation with some other parents about their journeys and their experiences as well. I'm going to introduce those folks here in a second. See, there's some phones up kind of grabbing that code. So as you're grabbing it, think about your parenting journeys and the folks that you work with and why this is important work. This is vital work for us to do. So I'll wait a moment here. Oh, you can go ahead and clap it up. All right. I'm going to introduce the parent panel at this point. We have 3 parents who are going to join us and we're going to have a nice conversation about parenting and our experiences. The first parent that I'm going to introduce is Nikki Gaff. Nikki is the Director of Equity and Inclusion, Child Care Awareness of Minnesota. Mac McNiff is the Facilities and Site Operations Manager at St. Davis Center for Children and Family Development. And Ayan Omar, who's the Equity Director at St. Cloud Area School District. So will you 3 please come on up and join me here at the stage? And as you can see, these 3 people's families up here. Nikki is a parent of 5 children, Matt is a parent of 3, and Ayan is a parent of 2 children. All right, I'm going to join them for the panel discussion, and we'll get started. Well, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you all doing today?
Good. Doing well.
Doing well. All right. Are you a little nervous?
A little bit.
It's all right. Gonna make it happen. No worries. So we're gonna do our best to have a good dialogue. I'm gonna ask them a few questions. They may ask some questions themselves. Yeah, ready to get started?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So my first question is, how has your personal experience with your parents influenced your parenting style today? So think about growing up, how you kind of experienced your parents, and how has that had an influence on your own parenting style today?
Yeah, well, I'll start.
Go for it.
As a Somali American refugee, so much of what Jameston mentioned about how my parents parented through fear, through protection, making sure that we got home safely, we didn't participate in activities and things like that, just so they always knew our whereabouts. With that knowledge, as a young parent, really my goal is to make sure that my kids can adventure, can experience different parks, different activities, making sure that they have that guidance and that protection. So it's really a navigation and finding the balance all the time.
Nice.
Yeah.
How about you, Dickie?
Yeah, thank you for sharing your story, Brandon, because I feel like I can relate to a lot of the pieces that you had. So I grew up in a family with a single mom and 4 kids. I was the second oldest, and my 3 siblings were diagnosed really early on the autism spectrum. So I often heard a very well-intentioned, "You're not the one we have to worry about." And as an adult, that's really challenging because you don't know how to know what your needs are, how to find them, how to share them, how to ask for them. And so I'm always thinking about that as a parent. And you heard correctly, I'm a mom of 5, ages 5, 3, 3, 2, and 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
So a lot of feelings, a lot of needs, and very little language skills.
Yeah.
And so I tried to translate the narrative I have of "you're not the one we need to worry about" to all of you have individual needs, and they're different, and they come at different times. And I'm not sure how to always navigate those with you, but we can find ways to sit down and figure out how to address your needs. And you know that they're important. I'm here to help you navigate that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Matt.
Yeah, so I was born in Korea. I'm a Korean adoptee. So there's multiple kind of narratives that have gone through my head. And I think something powerful and important for me as a parent is reflecting on the narratives that I've internalized both from my adoptive and birth families, and just kind of understanding what that means and how that comes through, as well as the narrative that my kids are taking on as who they are in the world. So really building that up in a really positive identity and just kind of checking in with what they're actually hearing in that story, not necessarily what I'm always telling them or what they might be seeing or I think they're seeing, but really checking into what's their voice in this story, what are they internalizing from this. It's been a really important check. I don't always do it well, but just kind of a frame that I've gotten.
Perfect. We're going to stay down there with you, Matt, and work our way back this way. Our next question is, how did the global pandemic impact your experience of parenting?
Yeah, I mean, I think the word itself is even triggering, right? You kind of like tense up, you're like, even in the question. But for our family personally, there's a really big both and kind of holding both these things in this is that in one way, it was really stressful. It was really, really stressful working at the job I had and holding other families, holding other people, and wanting to do that really, really well and caring really deeply about that and holding that weight then at home. And then again, there's this fear component. You're like, I don't actually know what's going on in the world. There's a lot of other pieces that were happening at that time besides just the actual health crisis that was. And so holding all of that and doing it in a way to help nurture and like you mentioned a lot, to help them through in a growth mindset. Right. And at the same time, a huge gift, I think, for us, especially younger children, schedules got cleared, right? You didn't have all these kind of peripheral birthday parties that are great, but like you were just kind of like, all right, I don't have anything this weekend again, and I'm not traveling again, and I guess we're going to a park. And like you were saying, I love it. Just slow it down. Don't hurry through it. Like all we have to do today is make sure we've eaten something and maybe try to get some sunshine. Like, and that was one of the most beautiful gifts that we could, I hope, as a society have kind of gained from that. But definitely both and in that. For sure.
Absolutely. How about you, Nikki?
I've been a parent for 5 years, and the majority of that was through COVID. So I still need to reflect on how I parent now versus if there wasn't a pandemic. But at the time, it was the only time I was pregnant. I've had my children 5 different ways is how I joke about it. But I was pregnant with our daughter, and we gave birth in January 2020. And the day I was supposed to come back from maternity leave, Ann McCulley over there emailed us and said, "You're not coming back." So I've been on the world's longest maternity leave. And it was a lot to navigate. We had a newborn, we had a 2-year-old, we had sold our house and moved to a little apartment and just flew by the seat of our pants. But one thing that I like the word that you said, gift, because the pandemic was quite terrible for all of us in so many ways. But there were some silver linings for our family, and we really got to know and see how important time is. And so we only spent time with toddlers doing puzzles and coloring, and that was it. And then we had to move on to the next activity. But now it's like a foundation of our family, and our kids can vocalize like, "I need time with you," or "I haven't had enough alone time with you," or "Can you take me on a date, mama?" Like, yes. So it's like a foundation of us that we are always there. It's exhausting sometimes, but they know we are always there. And I think the pandemic like nurtured that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was a language arts teacher, as well as I had a second grader and a 2-year-old. So we were in the mix of potty training, learning, and teaching at the same time, while at the same time navigating the online platform of learning and teaching. The pandemic really taught me the power of space and hugs. I learned quickly that we needed intentional spaces. Prior to the pandemic, every space was free game, where we were able to create space for the 2-year-old, the second grader, and the teacher. And my husband at the time continued to work. So it was just me, the 2 kids, and online. I had 130 kids online in a day. So intentionality around spaces in the house was something that my kids taught me. But hugs. I learned just how much adults heal through children, right? You heal the child, you heal the parent, you heal the adult. And it was my second grader who and my 2-year-old who just taught me that 30-second hugs sometimes can say 1,000 words. They may not have the words to express, to say what their needs are. But where I was accustomed to just quick 5 seconds, 10 hugs became 30-second hugs, became a minute. And you know a hug is effective when the shoulders drop. So I learned quickly through my kids, okay, they're going to keep holding my neck. And then suddenly you get comfortable. And through that, I was able to really heal my kids.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard recently a report that said that everyone needs 8 hugs a day. Anybody heard about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't get 8 hugs a day. I'm like, I'm like hug deficient. Need some help. So the next question is, in what ways are you creating a sense of community on your parenting journey? And what resources do you have or do you wish you had? We'll just start here and work our way back, though. Let's go for it.
As a director of equity services, so much of the work I do is establishing a community, a foundation for all kids, where they feel safe, where they feel they belong. And personally, I come from a family of 12. So my mom has about 20 grandkids. So at any given time with my sisters, we're able to get together, where cousins get together, and really building a sense of community, sharing stories. Like my older sister, my nephew, who's a kindergarten, and my daughter's kindergarten now, he struggles getting on the bus. I'm like, mine too. How do you deal with it? So in a way, commiserating in a productive, positive way, but at the same time, sharing resources, sharing doctors, sharing questions. Or when we take our kids in to the doctors, often we don't know the questions we need to ask. But my sister who's in community health will often, because she has kids much older, give me questions. Here are some questions you should present, you should inquire about, or even parent-teacher conferences. Here are some questions that you should inquire about to really build those resources that you need.
Awesome.
I don't know if you asked the second part of the question, but
go for it.
You had asked also what resources do we wish we had, and this kind of made me think about 2 communities that I am a part of, and I wanted to share both of them because I think that what one lacks, they can learn from the other, and it's kind of challenging being a parent in both. So the first community is the LGBTQ community. I'm a queer parent, and what we do thrive on is community. There's a lot of us, whether it's allies or members, and we use that as tools to fight the fight with each other or commiserate positively. I love how you said that. Or just say, like, how are we going to navigate this? Or in Minnesota, our community passes legislation. Legal marriage was passed here first before it was nationally. So we obviously step up for each other. But what we don't have access to is information, specifically being a queer parent. How do I show up at a doctor's office when the form says mom and dad? Can I just cross off dad and put my name? Or if you're at a childcare program and say it's totally fine for them to make 2 flower pots on Mother's Day, it's going to be fine. We have a lot of them now. or how do we navigate the fact that in Minnesota, non-biological parents still have to adopt their own children because our legislation is outdated? So we don't have access to information on how do we actually do the thing we're doing unless we have community. And then the other community I'm a part of is racially aware white women. And what we do have is access to so much information on how to do the thing. How do we fight racism? How do we stand up for children and families of color? Like, we have all of that available, but I have yet to experience community of white women in spaces knowing how to be anti-racist. And I'm not necessarily talking about reading the books and documentaries and knowing racism exists. That's valid and part of the journey, but I'm talking about white women who stay in white spaces and can see the racialized nuances and say something. Right. Or the ones who can have their fierce advocacy skills for all the things, but apply it to policies and procedures that actively discriminate against children and families. And lastly, the women who can show up when I'm exhausted all the time, not just when tragedy happens, because we have to keep going. And so I think the two communities have something the other doesn't, and being a parent in both, I wish I had more.
Gotcha. Yeah, thank you.
Before I speak, I'm just marinating on that. Like,
go for
you know, the whole space is filled with such good people and good ideas around here. So just trying to take that in. I think for me, community. It's such a good question. Some of it as being Korean American and Korean adoptee in a space that Minnesota has a very large Korean adoptee population, mostly kind of adults, young adults at this point, but but it's a little bit dispersed in some ways. And so there's a camp that I'm a part of and called Camp Chosan. And so we go there, we send our kids. And part of that is being in spaces that the kids have people that look like them. They have similar experiences to them. That's not necessarily built into communities. There isn't like, hey, in this neighborhood's there's a lot of Korean adoptees. It just doesn't really exist. It is a little bit more dispersed. And so really having to be intentional, thoughtful, going to pay a little extra to go to a Taekwondo studio because they have a Korean American instructor who speaks fluent Korean, because we value those things and want those. And they're just not naturally kind of showing up. So really kind of doing some research, doing some extra homework, and going out to go get those things for the kids, which is a huge privilege of mine to be able to do in some regards. But I think wanting that, prioritizing that, and not necessarily getting that as growing up myself. And I think another part of the community for me is just like in being around parents, whether it's professionally or personally, just like the amount of people that don't hear you're a good parent, you're a good dad, you're a good mom enough. Like the amount of times I've said that just naturally because of conversation, because I think they're doing something heroic, and you can see tears well up. I'm even almost tearing up saying it, or like people's like shoulders drop, like, oh my gosh, like that builds community in a way that like you don't have to have it all together. You can have a really bad day as a parent and you're a good parent. You're a good mom, you're a good dad, you're a good person. And like holding that together as a community, a collective people, if people in here are parents, right? Just to internalize that, like you're a good human, you're a good parent. Like to build that community, I think is really important for me too.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. One more question for you all. What does resiliency mean to you in the context of parenting, and how have you demonstrated it on your journey? And we can just popcorn this time. Anybody who wants to speak first? Oh, you like the order? Okay.
No.
Okay. We can keep going like that. I can spice it up a little bit. I don't want to shock anybody. You want to start, Matt?
Yeah,
we'll stay in order. Go for it.
Did I mention how many small people are in my life? Just
I got you. Need a little more order. All right, we'll keep the order. We'll keep the order. No worries.
Oh man, resilience. Such a big word, a good word, one we try to like grapple with. I think for me, part of it is dealing with my own baggage, dealing with my own stuff. Brandon, you mentioned it a bunch, both pre-kids and then after kids. You're like, oh, there's a whole lot more in there, and going to do that work. Otherwise, it comes out sideways. Otherwise, it comes out unintentionally and intentionally sometimes. These messages that I don't even know that I'm saying to myself. And so doing that work so that I can show up for them and in spaces for other people around that work is so important. And that's owning it. That's being humble. That's owning, like, I'm not good at this, or I'm not humble. I need help, or all those sorts of pieces. And I think another piece is within that is those emotions I'm really nervous about, scared of. Like, I don't do well with when you're sad. Really, really don't. So if someone gets hurt, like, my initial reaction is like, get up. That's the only way you're going to get up. No, you know, like, that's one of the messages I heard as a kid. No one's going to help you but yourself. You better get up. And that's the initial reaction. Then that is not compassionate, especially for a 2-year-old that just hit their head on a table or something, right?
Yeah.
Like, they need a hug and they need to be told, like, it's okay. Like, and so if I don't do that work, right? But it's going into those places that are really scary, really hard for me. I think that's resilience. Being okay to go in those spaces. Like, it's okay to be sad. It's okay for me to be sad. But that's been resilience for me, I think, on the journey right now.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
You ready, Nikki?
Okay, yes, I realize
all right.
I'm next.
Go for it.
Thank you for going with me.
No worries.
I think first off, I love how you called out your wife, because I think that's a big important of resilience, is that my wife and I balance each other out. So hi, Wade, I know you're at home with the baby. That just, like, I could not do that without my partner.
Right.
And the things that create resilience, at least in our partnership, is navigating other people's no's and navigating other people's I could nevers. And other people's no's are like, no, you cannot have your daughter in this speech because she's not showing enough symptoms. So you cannot have, like, this service. Or, no, your son can't go to our childcare program because I am racist and he's the only black child here. Or, no, you and your wife cannot get pregnant today because this one form isn't filled out correctly. And if that happened, our daughter wouldn't have been born. So we have had to a lot of no's to navigate and just keep pushing forward. And the I could nevers, which when you have 5 little people in your house, a lot of people are like, I could never. Whatever that means, fill in the blank. And we hear it all the time. Strangers, people we know, I could never. And after you hear that so many times, it starts to make your world feel really small, in that you don't have community or others who could even fathom the idea. Even though we're not doing anything extraordinary, we just love them. They're here. Sometimes they're loud, sometimes they're not. Like, we're just raising them and love our kids, and it's not anything above and beyond. But to keep hearing, oh, I could never do that. It's like, well, that's really isolating.
Right. Thank you.
I had to be resilient my whole life in terms of just my background, my narrative, and transition from Somalia to here. And my parents did the best they could with what they had, with what they knew. Over time, what I've learned is, just in my leadership role, but as a parent, just because kids can be resilient doesn't mean that they should have to be resilient. And it's up to us, adults who have it somewhat figured out, to make sure that we're doing better for them. We're doing better for the kids. And in a way, how do we normalize feelings? And I'm learning that as a parent with my kids, as I too heal through their journey. I moved up here from Atlanta, Georgia, and for a long time I begrudged winter in Minnesota, and I still do. But but it wasn't until after I had Sophia, right around when she was 3, that through her, I learned how much fun winter could be, through sledding, through snowbuilding, through eating snow too. You know, I've told her many times, don't eat snow. But one time she goes, why not, Mom? I'm like, I don't know, because I've been told not to. So here we were eating snow, and it's just fine. We live to tell about it. So for me, it was through her journey and her growth, I'm able to participate and heal as well, and normalize the feelings of being scared, being anxious. I often use, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be nervous. And every once in a while, I hear my kids give that right back to me when I'm in a hurry to get to work, or I'm just huffing and puffing because something didn't go well in DEI life. My daughter would say, Mom, it's okay. I'm like, you're right. It's okay. It'll all be fine. So I'm learning as I am teaching through my kids.
Awesome. Ayan, Nikki, Matt, thank you. This is an amazing panel. Can you give it up for the panel? I got 10 more? Oh. I just realized we got more time than I thought, so we're going to keep it going. All right. I thought we were out of here sooner. All right. Okay. All right.
Thanks for the claps, though.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I will say that you all do sound like you are amazing parents. And Matt, you said something that was extremely important is we don't always get that feedback on how well we're doing. And I think just like children, a lot of times the squeaky wheel gets the grease type of thing where when kids are doing things that they're not supposed to be doing, they get a lot of attention. How do you all celebrate being parents? How do you pat yourselves on the back when you're like, yeah, you know what, I rocked that. I did a really good job with the kids. Like, how do you do that? How do you celebrate being a parent? See? Take a minute to think about it. I'll tell you how I do it, and then you all can feel it. So two things. One, it was in partnership with my wife. So we started this thing before the pandemic where we realized we don't spend a lot of time together without the kids. So we started to do what we called day dates. And so we would intentionally every month take a day off from work and just spend the day together. We would go to the park if it was warm, go out to eat, go bowling, just do something. And we always try to choose like a day in the middle of the week where there's not a lot of traffic and stuff like that. Then the pandemic happened and day dates were done because everything closed down. So what we did was we had intentional time away from each other. Now that might sound kind of crazy, like why would you do that? But we needed that space because we were in a 3-bedroom townhome and everybody's together and we're always on Zoom or Teams or Google, whatever. And we just needed to be away. So what we started to do was schedule 4 hours where I'm with the kids or my wife's with the kids, and then you just go do whatever you need to do for that time. And that really helped us during the pandemic. Then the pandemic kind of whittles into where we're at today. And we're like, well, what do we do now? And now what we've done is we kind of do a combination of both. We'll take that intentional time for ourselves throughout the month. But also we have fun family Fridays every Friday. And this is when the children get to have whatever choices they want. Now you may be thinking, how does this deal with your own self-care? Well, it gives us an opportunity for us to just kind of relax as parents and let the kids kind of guide us, with some restrictions. They don't get too crazy. But they get to choose the meal and the activity every week. And I'm always looking forward to what they choose. Now, my kids have done really well at choosing things, so they don't get too wild, but we always have fun on Friday nights because we give them some of the power and authority to choose what happens in the family. So,
That's cool.
how about for you all now? You had some time to process.
We celebrate in small ways, right? Whether it's who gets to choose the song in the car that we jam out to, what to bake for dessert or for breakfast. In small ways, we find a way to celebrate the successes. But my kids absolutely love camping in the living room. So we'll bring out the beds, the mattresses, the blankets, Friday nights, Saturday nights. It becomes a party when cousins come over too. But for them, it's let's camp out in the living room. Everyone has their own space and we pop in a movie and have some popcorn. That's
Nice.
I think ours is a lot less intentional, just like naturally happened. And it's just saying, I'm really proud of us. And I don't know, it just kind of happened. And I think recently, our youngest is 3 months old and just came to us in August. So we've just became moms of 5. It's a new transition. It's a lot to navigate, but we bought everyone's jackets, mittens, and hats before the weather changed.
Yeah, there you go. Good.
And
That's good.
yes. And I remember leaving the store and I was like, wow, I'm just really proud of us. And so there were just every single time I put out 4 plates, I'm just like, I'm really proud of us. So it's just the smallest things. And I don't know as parents if you can relate, but there's this moment at bedtime where you have the worst day or it's so stressful and you just can't wait till they go to sleep. And then you miss them. And all you do is talk about them for 3 hours straight. And we just really take that time to be like, I'm really proud of you for what this, and this that you did today. Or I'm really proud that the jackets and the car seats are all in the spots they need to be. And just the really small things that we rush through. I just keep saying I'm really proud of us. And I think it's been a practice that the two of us pass by each other and say, I'm really proud of you.
Nice.
I love the question, and it's already a flag in my head, like, oh, I'm not doing that enough. Clearly, do you see the blank stares on all our faces?
Yeah.
So such a good, important thing for all families and parents to do, right? Just celebrate the little things and the big things. I think for us, just trying to work on some high fives and handshakes and things like that. Sometimes those nonverbal, like you were mentioning, the hugs. And then this is more of a coping strategy than it was a celebration, but it's kind of turned into a celebration. But there's times when we're like cooking in the kitchen, it's just that kind of 4 o'clock hour where you're like, oh my gosh, this is going crazy. And I turned up music. I said, I need music. I need something else other than, more questions or yelling. And I just turned up music and just started to dance. I was like, this is fine. I'm in a happy place. And the kids started dancing. And so for us, just having that almost not a little bit of a distraction, but just this positive kind of energy kind of flowing in there, usually a little bit louder than it needs to be. And just, I think that's been a huge celebration. And now they love to do it right before bedtime, which is the worst strategy.
Yeah.
But it's a huge celebration that they just they're like, can we put on some music? And it just kind of brings everything away.
Perfect. All right, now we're done. Okay. So there we go. Thank you all. Amazing job.
Wow, that was really, really great. Thanks to the parent panels for sharing your wisdom. And Brandon, you and I don't know each other, but that childhood, yes. I know that childhood. And I think there are a lot of people in here who resonated with your story, so thank you for sharing it with us. Good morning, everybody. I'm Pahua Hoffman. I'm the Senior Vice President of Government Community Relations for Health Partners. We are a proud founding partner of Little Moments Count with so many partners here in the room. First, I want to thank NPR, this beautiful space. Deshaun, the crew here, thank you for welcoming us and for being such gracious hosts. I love this space, and this is our usual spot for our annual conference, and so glad to see so many of you here. I want to take a moment here to talk just a little bit about our early childhood work together, this conference, this community, and this movement. And we like to call it a movement because we need everybody. And the movement is growing. So this slide is not meant to be readable. You might be able to make it out, some names. And that's actually a really good thing, right? Because there are so many partners here. And this slide lists all 85 current Little Moments Count partners. The yellow highlights are new partners who joined us just this year. Here's a better visual highlighting 17 of the new 2023 partners, including the Bemidji Early Childhood Coalition, the Hmong Early Childhood Coalition, the Minnesota Association for Education of Young Children, the National Association of Health Services Executives, a Northland chapter, and Rice County Public Health. I'm just reading some of the names of the new partners whose logo is a little smaller, but you can see them all here. And I hope you check out their tables out in the expo for more information. When you look at this list and the prior list, I hope that you're also seeing how we are growing our footprint beyond the metro. In fact, plans are already underway to expand Little Moments Count into greater Minnesota and western Wisconsin. So stay tuned for that work. I want to take this opportunity to highlight a special partner. Do we have any NAS folks in the room? Woo! Thank you for being such a great partner. I want to highlight NAS and the special resource, the NAS Early Childhood Family Toolkit, which you can find on the NAS program webpage and also through the Little Moments Count website. Last year, who was here last year? Just a show of hands. All right. Ariel's not here with us today, but she debuted one of 4 toolkit videos during last year's conference. Now, all of you can view and share all 4 videos on the importance of playing, singing, talking, and reading. So the toolkit represents a first of its kind, integrating traditional early childhood information and parent supports alongside parent and child mental health and physical health, healthcare, and social need to really support the full family. So I want to thank our NAS partners, in particular Ariel and Andre Dukes, and the Family Academy coaches and parents. I also want to thank the Little Moments Count, other Little Moments Count partners and leaders for helping with the project, reviewing and refining. Over 15 partners helped make the toolkit possible. And a special thanks to PNC Grow Up and Great for partnering on this important and innovative project as a funder. In addition to partner growth, 2023 was an important year of social movement growth across all of our media channels, so social, digital, traditional, YouTube, LinkedIn, Early Risers, and of course, you heard earlier the Little Moments Count radio podcast. So just take a moment and take in those stats. In our second year of the Birth Center work, we now have reached over 6,000 families. Plus, we've added additional ways partners are supporting new families with tools that have been developed as part of this program. We even have some organizations exploring the use of this work from Texas, New York, and California. So we're making a national impact here. I don't have a slide for it, but this year we're really focused in on what more we could do, be doing together around policy and systems change perspective. So maybe I'll take a moment here and just thank some of our electeds in the room. So Representative Herr, thank you for joining us. Representative Dave Pinto was here. I know he got a shout out earlier, but thanks to him, I know he had to leave. Councilmember Necker, thank you. You're here. And Ramsey County Commissioner Frentham, thank you also for joining us. So this year, where's my co-conspirator? Angela Watts, thank you for joining me in asking the question, what more could we be doing policy-wise to move some systems change work? So that will be on our to-do, but we're really excited about all that was accomplished this last session around early childhood. So thank you for those that were part of that. And since we're still in the season of giving thanks, I want to thank all the speakers today. So, Jem Seta, thank you for setting the tone for today's conference. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Deshaun and Kyra from NPR, thank you again for being great hosts, the speakers. Our award winners, Jocelyn, Vanessa, and Denise, congratulations. And to our parents, panel, Ayan, Matt, Nikki, and Brandon Jones, again, thank you. All right, I am, okay, I'm all that's stopping you from your next meeting, and maybe you don't want to go there, but just a couple more slides. Two QR codes to mention. If you haven't yet, scan this QR code, sign up for emails, and find Little Moments Count on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. We're all over the place. And the more we partner, the more we accomplish together, so get people to sign up. And if you're interested in becoming a partner, use the link on the website, and the Little Moments Count website, and we'll make sure that someone gets in contact with you. Okay, this is the most important piece, I've been told. Please take the event survey. Let us know what you liked, where areas where we can improve. So use those in the audience, you can use the QR code. For virtual attendees, you just need to click on the survey button below the viewer panel, I've been told. So look down at the viewer panel, and you can click through and find the link to the survey. That's all I have. So thank you, each and every one of you, for participating in this morning's conference, but also just what you do each and every day. So thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.